Welcome back. My name is James Gill, and I'm the pastor of Providence Church of Morristown. As we continue our lessons through First Peter, the apostle reminds us that God exalted Jesus Christ through his submission and suffering, and he has promised to do the same for believers. Followers of Jesus ought to shift their perspective on submission and suffering, to see the redemptive qualities intended in them by God. Now, here are three reasons that you should shift your perspective about suffering and submission. First, because the one who has suffered in the flesh has ceased to sin. In other words, how you were forgiven of your sins was through submission and suffering, the death of Jesus. In simple terms, suffering and submission have redemptive qualities for the believer. They are God's weapons for us in our fight against sin. Second, because suffering for doing what is right glorifies God. Now, when a believer suffers, it ought to lessen his faith in the flesh and the world and increase his faith in God. And when a believer suffers for doing right, it glorifies God more than his own comfort. When we suffer for doing what's right, we are saying that the author of right is worth suffering for. He is worth more than the comforts of going along with the crowd. It shows us and the world the great value of God when we say that He is worth more to me than my ease, my pleasure, or my comfort. Finally, we can shift our perspective away from a negative view of suffering and submission to God towards a more redemptive view because we are called to trust our souls to God. Although it is tempting to complain about the injustices of this world, and it is equally tempting to take matters into our own hands through revenge about those who insult us, the followers of Jesus are exhorted to simply trust their souls to God, who will judge all things rightly, and at this we should rejoice.